Alarm goes off at 4:45. Roll out of bed, rub the sleep from my eyes. Throw on a shirt and some jeans and my boots, and then it's time to make that morning drive. Work all day till I'm totally beat. Get back home and fall right to sleep. Alarm goes off in the morning and the cycle's complete. Work, sleep, repeat. Yeah, work, sleep, that's all I ever do anymore.
Work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep.
Somewhere up the line I forgot what I was working for. Yeah, there goes life, looks like it ain't slowing down for me. All I ever do is work, sleep, repeat. Seems like yesterday I was 17, running bootlegs and draws and screens. Now I'm running up debt and I'm scrambling to make ends meet. So work, sleep, repeat. Yeah, work, sleep, that's all I ever do anymore.
Work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep.
Somewhere up the line I forgot what I was working for. Yeah, there goes life, looks like it ain't slowing down for me. All I ever do is work, sleep, repeat. Sometimes at work I just sit around and fantasize about how I can save myself from dying in this working life. And that alarm goes off again at 4:45. Roll out of bed, rub the sleep from my eyes. Throw on a shirt and some jeans and my boots, and then it's time to make that morning drive. Yeah, work, sleep, that's all I ever do anymore.
Work, sleep, work, sleep.
Somewhere up the line I forgot what I was working for. And there goes life, looks like it ain't slowing down for me. All I ever do is work, sleep, repeat. All I ever do is work, sleep, repeat. All I ever do is work, sleep, repeat.
Hey, welcome to Engineers Workshop. Sorry, no video last week, but still made some progress on the shop. But you can see from the intro, we've got some machines moved into a different position. The Miltronics Partner 4 temporary storage, the Cincinnati number 2 cutter grinder, basically accessible from the front. I've got some amount of space to get in towards the back here. Behind me I have the 2 foot by 3 foot granite inspection slab, the rotary table, the 12 by 18 right angle plate, and at the back the Quincy compressor. So this frees up a lot of the area that was occupied under the overhead beam, which is basically where the camera is standing. And you saw me start work on the commercial shelving unit. Basically, it had like 4 or 5 2x4s as spanners and then a piece of OSB on each level. I wanted to get something a little bit beefier, and another bidder who left a bunch of 1x6 shelving panels, I said, hey, can I take some of those? And they said, sure. So I got enough of the 1x6s to put a double layer across the entire 2 shelves of that shelving unit. So I'm going to finish that up. I rigged up a really janky setup of 4 casters on a couple of boards to be able to move this thing so I can kind of move it into place by myself. And it's already, one of the casters already came off once, so I'm going to have to be really careful. I can't run into anything in the floor, but I think the shelf unit I'm going to put up on the far side of that doorway. I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty dry over there. And that'll be fairly good, easy access with a pallet jack or a dolly to take the lathe parts from where I've got them over to that area for temporary storage. And then it's a short distance out to this side where we do most of our sandblasting and painting. So, as our friends in the UK say, let's get cracking on finishing that shelf. Also want to talk to you after that is done about the internet project for this shop and for our residents. So let's crack on. There we have it. Both shelves covered with a double layer of 1x6s. I staggered them, so I cut one in half. I ripped it in half and offset the second layer so that there's no gaps falling through. And I can still put the OSB on top of this, or I can just use it as is. I'll probably just start out using it as is. Final position of the shelf is in a fairly dry area, fairly smooth portion of the floor except for the metal extensions that are sticking up through here. But I can load this up with Monarch lathe parts, and I got a second tier which I can put stuff on as well, boxes and things I don't need to get at. I've got a Wisconsin engine I've got to put back together, so that could go on here as well. And I mean, this ought to be good for a couple thousand pounds of weight. And then I've got pretty short, clear access to take parts out for sandblasting and painting. So, good setup. Well, that's going to open things up quite a bit in the shop. So, I wanted to talk to you about internet. So, we're in a rural area, and we don't have internet at the house, you know, broadband, and we don't have it here at the shop. I need some security cameras over here. So about 2 years ago, I started to try to find out if we could get it. We went briefly for a while with satellite internet. I forget what brand it was, but I don't think they're in business anymore. And they were offering up to 10 megabit per second internet for $110 a month. And we did that. And we were getting, by the time, I don't know, I had it for about a year, we were getting like closer to 1 megabit. And I remember calling and asking them what was up about it. And they said, well, you know, we've had a lot of people come online and the usage was really high. And, well, you know, you're promising up to 10 megabit internet and you're giving me 1. How about if I give you up to $110 a month, depending on what you give me? And they wouldn't go for that. So I got rid of that service. Currently, I'm running off of a Netgear wireless, hotspot from work, which does give me 10 to 12, but that's not good enough for, watching any kind of streaming videos or working with big SolidWorks files. So about 2 years ago, I started to inquire from Verizon, and they do not have FiOS running out here, and Xfinity wouldn't even talk to me. I finally got Comcast Business, which is the same infrastructure as Xfinity, to agree to do an assessment for putting internet at the house. Now we have a long driveway, 600 feet, we cross railroad tracks, and the signal's on the other side of the road, but they came back with me with a quote for $21,000 to put internet to the house. And, you know, pound sand, Comcast. I'm not spending $21,000. I believe they even gave me a quote for hooking up internet at this building, which was about $2,000. But that's ridiculous. So fast forward a couple years, about 6 months ago, I started inquiring with Xfinity, and Xfinity finally started talking with me, and they did an assessment to hook it up at the house and sent 2 technicians out, and ended up, you know, after being all positive and, oh yeah, we'll get you hooked up. You know, they came back, nope, and refunded me my deposit. So they weren't going to run internet to the house. So my plan B has always been run internet to this building. This building's only 150 feet or so from either the side road or the main road, and there's internet all down the side road, there's internet all down the main road. I should be able to get this hooked up. So a technician was out yesterday, not the most positive gentleman you could imagine. I mean, he was the same guy who did the second assessment at the house, and I swear he seems like he doesn't want to do any installations that aren't just cookie cutter easy. You got, you know, a little salt box house 50 feet from the road, and he can just go click, click, click. Well, this is a little bit of a challenge, but we'll see what they come back with. I'm hoping they agree to put internet into this building. And then my plan initially was to get the internet from this building to my house, my other property, using a wireless link, a 5 gigahertz wireless link, which would, I put up an antenna here, because I got to get up above the trees, an antenna at my barn, and shoot the signal across the top of the trees. I bought a drone, and I took it up to, you know, basically I'm 100 feet, which is about as high as I could get the antenna in this building, even mounting it on the roof. And I still didn't have a clear line of sight to my barn, because this building's kind of at a low point in the land, and I'd say the barn is probably 20 or 30 feet higher, and there's trees in between, so it just it's not going to be great for doing a wireless signal from here to the barn. So the other option, more work involved, is laying fiber underground. So the internet would come into this building, copper signal, 600 megabit. I'd have a modem that would have an Ethernet port, and I could put a router in this building and then use a Ethernet to fiber converter and put single mode fiber underground from here to the barn, then go another fiber to Ethernet converter, and I could put a router in that barn. And from the barn to the house, I can use the wireless 5 gigahertz transponders, because I do have line of sight between the barn and the house, and that would get me at least 200 megabits to the house, but I'd have 600 coming in to this building and 600 megabit available to the barn. So let me walk you the path that I'm going to use to put this fiber underground. My intention is to come out of the building and start the trench where originally there was some phone service, and I brush hogged a path up to that little shed up there. There's a slab on the top of the hill. That's the highest point on this property, and it's 250 feet from the metal building to that shed. So I'm going to speed walk you up to that corner. And looking back to the building, 250 feet. At this point, I'm going to make a slight jog with the trench, and this line will take us to the back corner of our property is 260 feet. Okay, this is the property marker. There's the actual survey pin at the base of that, and this point divides the property. Originally this divides a 13.5 acre parcel. There's a house on this side and the barn is on that side, into two parcels. Both of these parcels came off of our original farm about 1959, and in sectioning these off when I purchased it back, I have a 20-foot easement, so I can come out 20 feet from that back property line, and I can put a driveway or utilities, whatever I want, back to the far corner. So the next leg of this, we're going to walk 390 feet to the original corner of these two properties, marked with an old concrete pylon. So this is a concrete pylon that kind of marks the intersection of a number of properties. Basically taking off in that direction and then perpendicular to it in that direction is the corner of the two properties that came off of our original farm back in about 1959. So I'm going to have a little bit of a challenge shooting a straight line from here to that T-post stake and then staying within 20 feet of it with the trencher. Next leg, you can see a fence over here. That's a neighbor, and who has graciously allowed me to continue this trench on what amounts to his property for a distance of 270 feet to the next corner. I'm going to stop here to show you this. This is a chimney. It's a spiral pipe about 24 or 30 inches in diameter that was from an old boiler from another sawmill on this property. Okay, now we're at the corner of my neighbor's property, and on this side of the fence, our main property with our house on it, 40 acres. And the next leg is through the impenetrable woods for a total distance of 580 feet to the barn, almost an exact 45-degree angle from this fence line. So I told my son to come in with the chainsaw and the machete and hack some of this growth. It gets a little bit better as you get into the pines, but we've got to get it to where I could drive either the tractor with a brush hog through there to make a path, or at the very least the trencher, which is narrower, and continue the trench 580 feet to the barn. Plan is to exit the impenetrable woods about here. This is the end of the 580-foot run. Then come across this cleared path, essentially parallel with the front face of the small barn. And come up into the building, probably at some point about here, which is behind some shelving. We've gone in and cleared the edge of some of the woods in another location. I just wanted to show you how it does open up quite a bit. I'd say after the first 10 to 20 feet, you get into where the pines are, and it's very evident they're on about a 10-foot by 10-foot grid. So I was able to get the tractor with the brush hog in through here. But even if we have to go straight in, it's not too bad. We could take a machete and pretty much hack our way through any of these passages, and then have a walk behind trencher, come through here to get the path. The hardest thing is going to be to keep it as straight as possible, because the more bends you got in the line, the harder it's going to be to pull fiber through that conduit. The current janky internet setup originates with a Netgear wireless hotspot connecting to a router and a transponder
that shoots that signal the 350 feet or so to the house. On a good day, I can get 10 to 12 megabits throughput. Home internet originates from the small barn over there and is beamed wirelessly through, I think they're 5 gigahertz transponders from that point to the upstairs window of the house. And I have a router hooked up in the house that basically is just an access point. From an unused bedroom, you can see the target, the barn. And the transponder with its signal. The connection between the buildings is going to be by fiber optic. This is just a test, like a patch cable, about 6 feet long, to test the concept out. It's called single mode fiber, which basically means the communication is one way through each leg. This one actually just has 2 fibers, but the one I'm going to lay underground, it's going to be a round outer jacket with 6 fibers. 2 fiber core cable is about 25 cents a foot, and I think the 6 fiber cable, which essentially has the same jacket diameter, is like 30 cents a foot. So for an additional 5 cents, you get redundancy. You get 4 extra fiber lengths in case one of these things ever breaks. These are fiber to Ethernet converters. So you got Ethernet here. They're good for gigabit speed. Thank you to my son-in-law John for pointing me to the ones that were about 35 bucks. That'll do the job, because I mean, you look these things up and they're anywhere from 35 to about 250 bucks, and I don't know why you want to pay any more than you have to for something that's just taking this signal and turning it into that signal. And we have the cheap version of the fiber cleaving and cleaning kit, jacket strippers, fiber strippers, the cleaver that cuts these things dead square, some kind of cleaning bottle. This was about 50 bucks, and you could spend $600 or $1,000 on the same thing that will cleave your fibers. But for as many as I'm going to do, I think this kit will be just fine. So that's the interconnect technology between the buildings. Well, just for grins, I'm going to take the drone and I set up a flight path with some third-party software. You're able to fly missions, and I was able to trace the route on Google Maps with the inflection points of the path for the fiber. And so what this will do, hopefully if the mission is correct, is fly straight segments looking at the next inflection point in the path from the metal building where the internet signal will start, and taking it to the small shop where the end of the fiber run, where that signal will transition from just the fiber, go back to Ethernet with a switch, and then I'll use the transponders from the small barn over to the house, and that last leg will fly over to the house, and that's where the mission will end. My start point is the bed of the F800.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Got lots of equipment clustered here in this part of the shop. Got a lot of heavy-duty shelf space. I can start getting my Monarch lathe parts off the ground and get them prepped for painting. That'll be this fall's project, I hope. So thanks again for watching and subscribing. I appreciate all you viewers watching the progress on this humble shop. Hopefully we're going to get it enclosed pretty soon, within the next year or so. I'd love to get some doors on this place and stop the filth from blowing in. Till then, we will just make do as we can. So that's it for now. Back next week with more progress on the shop. And until then, as always, stay safe.
All I ever do is work, sleep, repeat.